Hi, I'm Don LaPlante, the instructional librarian at SUNY Cobleskill. Earlier this semester, Dr. Corbett scheduled me to visit your Psych 111 class for a research skills session, but since I can't visit you now, I've put together this 10-minute tutorial related to your psychology in the media assignment. Previous Psych 111 students have had trouble finding the kind of scholarly research articles they need, and this tutorial is designed to help with that. I want to show you a few tips here. First, we'll start with some tips for better searching using the library's main search engine. Then I'll show you how to narrow your search results to find the exact kind of sources you need. I also want to help you distinguish between scholarly sources and popular media sources. And finally, since not everything in a scholarly journal is a research article, I want to help you find the kind of article you need. So let's start with some tips for better searching. From the library's homepage, I recommend that you start by signing in. The link to do that is right under the main search box. Your login credentials are the same you'd use to log into Moodle or check your campus email. When you're using the library's search engine from off campus, signing in ensures that you're seeing all the content that we have available. It also allows you to save searches and individual articles, which I'll show you how to do later on. Next, since this assignment asks you to find articles, you can limit your search to just articles by clicking the magnifying glass icon and selecting articles from the drop-down. Unlike Google, the library search engine prefers you to use 2 to 4 keywords when searching, rather than full sentences or questions. You want to eliminate all irrelevant terms and focus on the words that must appear in your result list. So, if you're searching for information about whether teenagers experience greater anxiety if they use social media, don't type that whole question in the library search box. Instead, you'll want to pick only the 2 to 4 most essential ideas in that sentence and use those. In this example, I'd choose teenagers, anxiety, and social media. If any of your keywords are actually multi-word phrases like social media is, put that phrase in quotation marks when you put it in the search box. That way you'll search for that exact phrase, not just any article that happens to include both of those words somewhere. So let's do a demonstration. I'll make sure first that I'm searching for articles only. Then I'm going to add my 3 keywords, one of which is in quotation marks. Then I hit the search icon, and here are my results, about 1,400 of them. So now once I've got some search results, I'll want to narrow them down and find the right kind of articles. So to demonstrate this, I'm going to do a different search this time, looking at post-traumatic stress disorder and how it affects healthcare workers. Now, not all of the results that I find here are going to be scholarly sources. I found 257 results. I can use the Limit to Scholarly Sources button to weed out non-scholarly articles from things like magazines and newspapers. Or, if I only want popular sources, I can click this little Exclude Scholarly Sources button to weed out all of the scholarly journal content. While I'm here, let me just quickly show you how to save an article. Everything in your results list should have this little push pin icon on the side. And if you signed in when you started, clicking that little icon saves the article into your list of favorites so you can go back to the favorites icon and find it again later. Okay, now one last way to narrow your results is to limit by publication date. You might want to use the date limiter to cut your results down to things published in, say, the last 10 years to weed out older, less relevant stuff. Now let's talk about the most challenging part of the assignment. Even though I already showed you how to limit results to scholarly sources, many students still get confused about how to tell whether an article they found is scholarly or not. So now I want to give you 4 major criteria to look for to determine whether a source is a scholarly journal article. And the first question to ask is simply, Was it published in a scholarly journal? This may sound silly, but students who try using Google or Google Scholar instead of the library's database often end up with sources that were never actually published in a journal. That means those sources haven't gone through the rigorous analysis and fact-checking that is part of the peer review process. So in the past, for instance, some students have found online copies of something like a graduate student's dissertation or a master's thesis. Those aren't really scholarly journal articles because they haven't been published in a scholarly journal. Some people find sources like Psychology Today, which sort of sounds like a psychology journal, but if you're not sure and you check Wikipedia, you'll learn it's actually just a magazine, not a journal. Same thing with the Wall Street Journal. It sounds like a journal, right? No, it's just a newspaper. If you search for a journal title on Wikipedia, chances are good it'll tell you what kind of publication it is. The second criteria to look for. In scholarly journals, the authors have advanced degrees in the subject they're writing about, and their institutional affiliations are usually listed in the article. So in this article from the American Journal of Health Behavior, the 5 authors are listed at the top along with their relevant academic degrees. Then at the bottom, you can see their job titles and what universities they work for. If you check the author info for a popular newspaper article from the Washington Post about psychology, you'll see the author's background is actually in English and journalism. And even in a popular magazine that's about psychology, this author has a PhD, but when you look, you find it's in literature and linguistics, not psychology. The third criteria is the most important one now. Research articles in scientific scholarly journals almost always include the same 4 subsections: abstract, methods, results, and discussion. They should be easy to find if you scroll through. The abstract usually comes first, then methods, sometimes called materials and methods, results, and discussion. Once again, look for an abstract, which is usually the first paragraph, then keep scrolling until you can find methods, results, and discussion. Those are the sections that tell you you're looking at a research article from a scholarly journal. And last, there should be extensive citations. In-text citations appear all through the article, but there's also a very long list of references at the end of the article. Magazines, newspaper articles, blogs, they rarely have extensive in-text citations like this. It's also common for a reference list in a scholarly journal article to be 2 or 3 pages long. On to our last topic, finding research articles. I want to point out that not every article in a scholarly journal is a research study, but your research assignment here asks you to find a research article. So there are a few things you should be careful to avoid. Journals sometimes publish short letters to the editor. Those aren't research articles. They're not research studies. Journals also publish short reviews of books that have been recently published. Book reviews are not research studies either. And finally, the most tricky kinds of articles are called review articles. Instead of sharing the results of a research study, review articles are essentially long summaries of other research previously published by other people. It summarizes existing knowledge. That's why the subsections are so important to look for. Review articles might have an abstract and a discussion section, but since they're not actually talking about a research study, there's rarely a methods section or a results section. So there you have it. We finished our 4 main goals. Feel free to review this video as many times as you like. And as a special bonus, for those of you who stuck around to the very end, here's an extra tip. If you find an article you want to use for your paper, click on the title and then look for the citation icon. There you can find an APA-style citation that you can copy into your paper. There's also a Citing Sources tab on the library guide where you found this video. And if you need any help finding sources for this or any other assignment, you can do a live chat with a librarian under the Get Help tab by clicking on the Chat Now icon. Thanks so much for listening. Stay healthy.